What if your body isn't broken, only programmed? What if the ache you experience, the fatigue you bring, the signs and symptoms you've learned to stay with aren't everlasting flaws, however, styles your thoughts have repeated for years? Most humans believe restoration happens from the outside in, a pill, a procedure, a diagnosis. But science is beginning to reveal something uncomfortable and powerful at the same time. Your body has been listening to your thoughts longer than you realize, and the moment you change the signal, the body begins to respond. For years, we've been taught to separate the mind from the body, as if thoughts end in the brain and never reach the cells. But neuroscience, epigenetics, and psychology now show a different truth. Every thought you think creates a chemical reaction. Every emotion you feel sends instructions through your nervous system. When you live in constant stress, fear, or survival mode, your body believes it's under threat, and it shuts down healing. This isn't your fault, it's conditioning, it's repetition, it's a learned state of being. This video isn't about wishful thinking or pretending issues don't exist. It's approximately known how deeply the mind and frame are linked, and the way that connection may be retrained. Healing doesn't start when symptoms disappear. It begins when focus adjustments are made, when you forestall figuring out with the old tale, when you realize that your brain is not constant, your feelings aren't permanent, and your biology is not your destiny. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work is constructed on one central idea. If the brain can learn contamination, it can also analyze well-being. In the same way habits are formed, healing patterns can be formed, but it requires something most people avoid: stillness, attention, and responsibility for your inner world. Not control, not force, just awareness, practiced daily. So as you watch this, don't listen like a spectator, listen like a participant, because the information alone won't heal you, but the moment you recognize yourself in these patterns, the moment you feel the truth instead of just understanding it, that's where rewiring begins. Most people don't realize that their body is always listening, not to words spoken out loud, but to emotional patterns repeated every day. When stress becomes familiar, the nervous system memorizes it. The body stops living in the present and starts living in prediction. Past pain becomes a future expectation. This is how the mind quietly programs the body into survival mode. And survival mode is not designed for healing. It's designed to guard, shield, and bear. Over time, this regular inner tension tells the body that it's miles hazardous to restore itself. Your brain learns through repetition. The thoughts you think most often carve pathways. The emotions you feel most often strengthen those pathways. Eventually, the brain stops questioning them. It accepts them as reality. This is why humans say, "This is just how I am." Without understanding, they're describing a dependency, not an identification. The thoughts don't distinguish between actual hazard and imagined chance. It responds to emotion. If you repeatedly feel fear, resentment, guilt, or tension, the body prepares for threat, even if none exists. Healing cannot begin in a state of constant alert. The immune system weakens when the body believes it's under attack. Hormones meant for growth and repair are replaced by stress chemicals meant for escape. Over time, this imbalance becomes normal. People adapt to it. They call it life. But the body never forgets what safety feels like. It simply stops accessing it. Rewiring the mind begins with noticing the emotional state you live in most. Not judging it, not suppressing it, just observing it. Awareness interrupts autopilot. And when autopilot is interrupted, change becomes possible. The moment you notice a pattern, you are no longer fully controlled by it. That moment is small, but it is powerful, because every transformation begins with awareness before action. The brain is not fixed, it is plastic. That means it adjusts based on what you again focus on. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, but most people unknowingly use it against themselves. They rehearse problems in place of answers. They replay past pain in preference of developing new emotional experiences. The mind doesn't distinguish between actual activities and vividly imagined ones. It responds the same way. This is why memories can still trigger bodily reactions years later. Every time you relive a vintage tale emotionally, you strengthen the exact same neural circuits. The frame responds as though the past is taking place again. Heart rate changes, muscles tighten, hormone release. The body stays loyal to the mind's instructions. This is why people say they want to heal, but keep thinking like the person who was hurt. The body follows identity, not intention. To rewire the mind, you must interrupt the emotional habit of being yourself. That doesn't mean rejecting who you are. It means recognizing that who you've been is a learned pattern. When you repeatedly choose new thoughts paired with elevated emotions, gratitude, clarity, calm, the brain begins forming new circuits. At first, they feel unfamiliar, unnatural, even fake. That's normal. The brain prefers what's familiar, not what's healthy. Stillness is the gateway to the alternative. When the body slows down, the mind exits survival mode. In that space, the apprentice system becomes receptive. Meditation isn't always about emptying the mind. It's about developing distance between you and your automatic thoughts. The moment you observe a thought instead of becoming it, you weaken its control. Over time, consistency rewrites the signal. The brain begins to expect peace instead of tension. The body begins to trust instead of bracing. Healing doesn't arrive as a sudden miracle. It arrives as a quiet shift, a different baseline, a new normal. And once the mind learns safety, the body remembers how to heal. Most people anticipate life to change earlier than they feel better, but biology doesn't work that way. The body changes when the emotional signal changes first. Thoughts are the language of the brain. Emotions are the language of the body. When both send the same message repeatedly, the body adapts. This is how stress becomes illness, and this is how awareness becomes healing. When you awaken and replay worries, your body prepares for defense. When you anticipate issues before they manifest, your fear system remains alert. Over time, this becomes your emotional home. The body believes this is who you are. Breaking that cycle requires conscious interruption. You must feel something new before life gives you a reason to. Elevated emotions are not positive thinking. They are physiological states. Gratitude changes heart rhythm. Calm changes brain waves. Presence changes hormone levels. When you practice these states intentionally, you train your body to expect them. The body doesn't wait for proof, it responds to repetition. This is why visualization works when done correctly. Not imagining outcomes, but feeling the emotion of the future now. When the body experiences safety, confidence, or peace repeatedly, it begins to regulate itself differently. Genes associated with stress switch off. Genes linked to repair are activated. This is epigenetics, your environment shaping your biology, and your inner environment matters most. The hardest part is consistency. The old self resists change. It will pull you back into familiar emotions. That resistance is not failure. It's evidence that rewiring is happening. Each time you choose awareness instead of reaction, you weaken the old program. Healing isn't about solving what's wrong. It's about teaching the body that it's safe to return to balance. And balance is the body's natural state when the mind stops interfering. Many people misunderstand healing. They believe it's passive, that it happens to you. But healing is participatory. It requires presence, attention, responsibility without blame. When you stop identifying with the symptom and start looking at the pattern, the nervous system shifts. The body stops fighting itself. Pain often persists not because the body can't heal, but because the mind keeps reinforcing the same emotional environment. Healing doesn't mean ignoring pain. It means not letting pain define identity. When you say, my anxiety, my illness, my trauma, the brain strengthens ownership. Language matters because identity directs biology. Letting go is not forgetting. It's loosening emotional attachment. The body cannot heal what the mind keeps gripping. When emotions soften, the nervous system relaxes. When the nervous system relaxes, repair begins. This is why people heal unexpectedly during moments of surrender, not effort. Breath plays a critical role. Slow breathing signals safety. Safety allows regulation. Regulation allows healing. The simplest practices often have the deepest impact because they communicate directly with the nervous system. No analysis required. Over time, the mind learns a new baseline. The body stops scanning for danger. Energy once used for survival becomes available for restoration, creativity, and growth. Healing becomes sustainable because it's internal, not dependent on external conditions. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before stress became your default. The version of you that existed before constant pressure, fear, and anticipation. That version still exists. It was never destroyed, only buried under repetition. The future you want doesn't require becoming extraordinary. It requires becoming consistent. Healing is not a one-time event. It's a practiced state, a daily relationship with your inner world. When awareness becomes habit, the body follows. Every time you choose presence over panic, you rewire. Every time you interrupt a thought instead of obeying it, you heal. Every time you sit in stillness instead of distraction, you send a new signal. Small changes, repeated, reshape identity. You don't need to believe everything immediately. Belief grows through experience. Start with curiosity. Start with attention. The body responds faster than you expect when the signal changes. The mind created the pattern, and the mind can change it. And once it does, the body remembers how to heal itself. Healing doesn't happen in a rush. It happens in moments of awareness you choose again and again. You don't need to force change. You don't need to fight your mind. You only need to stop living on autopilot. Every time you slow down, every time you observe instead of react, every time you choose a new emotional state, you are teaching your body that it is safe to heal. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to balance, to clarify, to the version of you that existed before stress became your identity. So start small. One quiet moment, one conscious breath, one intentional thought. Because when the mind changes its signal, the body follows. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who needs healing. Subscribe for more deep psychology and mind-body wisdom. And remember, your biology is not your destiny.